Hey guys, Misu here. I'm gonna do what I promised to do. I'm gonna teach you how to make a weapon in Blender. The first most important step is gathering the references you need. Every 3D modeler would do this regardless of what they would say in perspective. For example, let's say I want to make an axe or something like that, right? So for example, I want to make a fire axe, right? Specifically a fire axe. Now it doesn't matter where you would get your reference. What matters is how you would shape it as a perspective. So we recommend them in getting them into a specific pose. I will show you in a bit. Yes, this one is an example. Let's make it bigger. So what people usually do is there are two ways. You can either use a plane, which would be this one over here. This has 4 vertices, and in general it has more control than a cube because you know where it's going and there's only one side of it. But this one would have 8 vertices. So you could say that this one is a part of a side of the cube as an example. For today I'll show you how to use it with a plane specifically. So let's start with the axe head first. Now there are only 5 modes in Blender, and the ones we're going to use the most is the object mode and the edit mode. The only time you want to sculpt is either for a character or it's something like you want to add scratch marks to it, but that would require a multi-resolution modifier. Now I would recommend this more for sculpting than subdivision. The difference between those is the level of control. So I want to make an axe head, right? And I'll show you how it works. And use the X-ray while doing this so you can see it more clearly. Select this. And learn what keybinds you're using. That's for sure. Besides all that, loop cut and a knife is your best friend for this. So let's say I want to make plenty of stuff here as an example. Now I want to go here. That way you can just do whatever you want, but you're gonna use the vertices mode more often. So let's say I want to give it like sharper edges here as an example. Now right now I'm trying to figure out how it's trying to work. So here, here, there. Did we scale up? Over here? Don't we just... There we go. Drop it down a bit. And again, like I said, this is your best friend. Selectively, of course. Some people may find that it's easier to do other things in a different approach. That's fine. That's the main point of 3D modeling. It doesn't matter what approach you would take. And if you're thinking, well, this is clearly tracing. Of course it's tracing. Everyone does it. It's nothing new. Even the professional ones use references and try to replicate what's there. There's really nothing bad about this compared to, let's say, a drawing. Because these are way two different things. But it's always okay to trace if you admit the original creator. But in this one, I don't really need to, besides the person who took the photo of it. Now, like I was saying, I want to push it out a bit. So here, here. And look, I'll be honest, I'm not going to tell you what keybind I use because that's more of a... It's not really my problem, if you know what I mean. But... yes, right here. Now, you might run into some trouble like this. But it's fine as long as you keep this stuff enough space, more specifically. It may look bad to some people, but that's pretty subjective in my opinion. So I just move here. Now, let's say, yeah. So you might run into a problem like this, more specifically. You're thinking, dang, this won't end well for me. Of course it's not gonna end well. What I did there was just use smooth, don't worry about it. But word of advice is don't try to exactly copy as I do. You use it as a learning experience, because what I'm teaching you is from my own perspective, and I encourage everyone here to learn it from themselves. Another tool you could use as an example is called proportional editing. Now what that does is you can just move multiple things at once, and it's really great if you're like, oh, I don't know, let's say you want to save time as an example. That's fine. That's really fine. So now I'm going to, the keybind for this is E for extruding, like this. And this will just put it there as the example. Now we just center it out. And there you go. We just essentially made an axe head. For this one, we would use a cube specifically. And we will strip it down to its bare minimum. So as for sizing, but if you're really confused on the keybinds, I would recommend referring to Blender's documentation of it. So, as an example, X-ray is more useful if you're using it as a cube as an example. And we're going to give it many loop cuts, because this is not something that you could just bend around easily, if you know what I mean. So we're gonna save it here. Then there. And if you're an artist, if you draw, you could also use your drawings as a reference as well. That's why many studios have these character sheets or turnarounds. They could just send it to their 3D modeling team and say, hey, I want you to make this. And they're like, okay, sure. Just give me the photos and I'll do it. That's how it will usually go. And if you want to know how much stuff your model has, you could go here and click statistics to know how much vertices, edges, faces, and triangles you have. So right here, there. You can also use this to figure out what's the problem of, why am I lagging so much with this more specifically? So we're gonna keep going until we get the shape right. The main key here is shape design. That way you can tell of, how will I design this object? As an example. So here, another one. Then another line here. Now I'm doing this way faster because I have been doing this for 2 years. But it's always okay to go for a more slow approach. That's always fine with it. In fact, I would encourage you to do that because making things like these really take time, and sometimes you may feel like, oh, this is just draining my soul. And of course it's meant to drain your soul. That always happens to everyone. You just need to remember that you're not the only person. So let's go. Now, as an example, you could go for like 3K as an example. But let's compare it with reference. Does it hold up with the reference? No, it does not. It does not hold up with the reference. So I'm not really going to use the modifier. I would use it more specifically for this one to give it more of a smooth feeling. And technically this would be low poly. So if you had a potato computer, this would run really well. Now I'm going to also teach you UV editing. UV editing, you can imagine you're making a sandwich. The bread is essentially your model, your UV, and the salami is your texture. If one thing is wet, the other one will be wet as well. So you need to approach the fundamentals carefully. Again, if you're having trouble, I would recommend referring to Blender's documentation. It has all the information you need there. Or you could watch another video and figure out, what's causing the problem? Oh, great. Normals. If I export this to Roblox Studio, there's gonna be an immediate problem. Some of the stuff might not appear, and that's because this axis is red. But I can simply correct it by just selecting all, mesh, normals, and flip. Of course, this can also be used as a technique for cartoon stuff. Guilty Gear, as an example. I'm not sure how they would work, but damn, ArcSight really got their stuff in. So we got all this stuff. What I did here is UV, smart UV project with these statistics. Now we're gonna do the same here. So select all, smart UV project, boom. You have a UV map. Of course, there is another method, but it takes more time, and that would involve involving every piece of nook and cranny to make it an actual map. But people would rather do this because it saves time. Now, we don't need this anymore, and I'm going to turn off face orientation. So, this is this, all of this, all of this. Now we're going to go to texture. So, let's say, as an example, I want to make this color. You press E on this one and color pick. You create material in the material slot and name it whatever you want. Boom. Now you could either click on the model, which would do this specifically, or you could do this way and text them hilt entirely. This is what's gonna happen. Now it looks like this. Looks normal, right? We're gonna do the same for this one as well. So, same thing. Texture slot, plain base color, sure. We will color pick again. Boom. Now there's also another thing. For example, how do I make it metallic? Again, you go to the material and do this specific nice trick. You could also increase the roughness or decrease it. So of course, do that. And there you go. That's the basic for now. But if you're still listening, I'm going to show you how to also bevel and how to make these lines like these. What you do is Ctrl plus B, like this. Then you also press extrude. Now what you're going to do is size it like this, no matter what it is. And there you go. Now you have a strange shape over there. And this is a part where you get really creative. So let's say I want to make an outline here. Boom. That's all I had to do. But remember, if you build it on the wrong part, you could mess up with the topology, and you would have to knife it in order to make it working again. So let's say, for example, I want to do this. Now, this is where you have to be really careful, because you can see the problem here. I am doing it all at once, and that is not good. So we give it like some sort of texture as an example, but I'll keep it the way as it is. More specifically, I will do something like this here. Then let's say I want to bevel this. Then size it down. Boom. Now this, compared to the other ones, looks more strange in a way. And what we're gonna do is cut it down a bit, or rather recenter it. There we go. So that's how you make a weapon. I'll probably make another tutorial soon regarding sculpting, and this is gonna be like the first part of the series, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you have any ideas what I should do next, what you're confused about, be that Blender, Roblox, or something about 3D modeling in general, please do leave that in the comments. Have a good night.